Howdy, y'all. The following is a clip from a show called On Our Last Nerve. Watch it on Objectively Subjective's channel and catch it every Friday at 7 p.m. Central Time. And also be sure to subscribe. We have some wonderful co-hosts on the channel, #Heathen and Faithless Southerner. Make sure to subscribe to them too. They're awesome. I hope y'all enjoy. Tonight I wanted to talk about, it's the hair, the soullessness of our gingerness. But yeah, tonight I want to talk about generally divisiveness. So this is another issue that really pisses me off. Blind adoration for one's in-group while maintaining just as blind of a hatred for the out-group, also known as tribalism. Now, it's really easy to critique folks you don't like and aren't a part of your tribe, but what are the people you're surrounded by and agree with? Well, generally agree with. What occurs when someone from your own in-group disagrees with you on a trivial issue? How do you handle it? Do you lash out in anger and call them a theist apologist? Or do you take time to consider what they have said? What I often see occur is folks reacting dramatically whenever someone with the in-group or the group they identify with has a slight deviation in their opinion from the rest. And no, I don't mean like a major disagreement, like, whether or not we should platform white supremacists or whether or not trans people should be allowed rights. But trivial issues like, is morality objective, or how do we define truth? I'm sure you can have a healthy discussion about these matters, and if everyone keeps a clear head, maybe even learn something. But what about your out-group? What are the people that really disagree with you? Like whether or not the entertainment industry is sexist. What makes people afraid to consider these ethical issues? Is it really because you consider these topics divisive, or is it because it might actually challenge the idea that you're a good and moral human being? Personally, I think it's the latter. It makes more sense to me that folks want to consider themselves as good, rational people, which of course is easy to do if you maintain the status quo. I also think self-improvement is a never-ending challenge, and it's important to question your positions on certain things. That's the healthy thing to do. It's also important to embrace progressive ideas. And newsflash, they're progressive. So when you think you got it all figured out, there's something new to learn. So be curious, not stagnant. Question yourself more than you do others. And definitely be willing to actually listen to new ideas. You may just find that fear you felt slips away. And that is such a joyful experience if you allow it to happen. So, yeah, it kind of ties into what you were saying about how people, atheists who you challenge, like just automatically go into defensive mode and call you all these names and stuff like that. I'm rational, you're not. You're being a theist. And that's ridiculous.
Well, I think that it's important to realize, especially whenever we're talking about groups, that humans are groupish, right? You're going to fall into a group of at least semi-like-minded people.
Yes.
Whenever you're involved in any social interaction, people are, and so I find it sad whenever criticisms are levied, like, well, you're just part of that group. Of course they are. And you're part of some other group.
Yeah.
Duh. Welcome to being a human. Right? And there are certain things that you can extrapolate from groups, right? There are certain things about Nazis that we know. Otherwise, they wouldn't be Nazis. And there's nothing wrong with saying that is a group that my group wants nothing to do with, right?
Well, but are they part of the 1930s National Socialist movement in Germany?
Oh,
They damn
fuck
sure
no.
would be if it was around.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, and so whenever these criticisms come up, right, the rational conversations that we need to be having around this is, where do we draw those lines between groups that we interact with and groups don't interact with? And are we drawing those lines for good reasons? And if somebody within our in group has a deviation, is it something enough to expel them from the group?
Mm.
Or is it something that we can deal with that sort of deviation? And
Exactly.
you see this in any human endeavor, right? That's why there's so many denominations of Christian. That's why the secular community is so split. The less moral foundation that you have uniting you, the more apt to in-group, out-group things that you'll be. You can't build a group without a moral foundation. That's why the atheists are like they are. So you get all these things, but even if you have a strong moral foundation, such as, you know, the inspired word of God, you still get thousands of subgroups, and some that just absolutely hate each other, right? And so don't criticize people for simply being in because they're being groupish, because everybody's being groupish, right? That's just something that happens. And we, like I say, we need to have meaningful conversations surrounding these things. And these are tough conversations to have, because they touch on the human condition. So, I mean, it's sad to see what happens within our various communities that happens. You know?
Agreed. There's always going to be schisms over ideas that are major enough that you cannot come to a consensus on. And if the question is, should we allow Nazis? No. That's not going to be something that I am going to agree with. And I'm not going to want to associate with people like that. And one of the funny things that I have found is people say, well, you've completely closed yourself off to the secular community. And it's like, no, I closed myself off to a small portion of it. There's actually a huge secular community out there that are leftist and are anti-fascist and do not support any of those things. So yeah, like they talk about creating echo chambers, but like there are so many different types of leftists out there that just by being a leftist, I'm not in an echo chamber, because there's a lot of people that either I'm too far leftist or I'm not leftist enough.
Mm-hmm.
So it's ridiculous.
It goes back to especially my thing with believing things that are true, which is one of the core principles that I try to live my life by. Like even as good of friends as we are, as these guys well know, if something rubs up against my sense of justice or whatever, I'm going to let you know. Right. And so another thing to not be afraid of is criticizing those within your group, because it needs to happen. That's one way to keep the echo chamber down. If I just agree with somebody because they're in my group, then that's not a good thing to do. It's fine to buck your group.
Hashtag, did you look like you were going to say something?
Yeah, and also there's a caveat of there are ways to bring up a disagreement without basically saying, fuck you, you're fucking wrong.
Yeah.
Like there are ways to discuss this that you can be like, hey, you know, I see you said X, I believe Y. Do you want to talk about it? You know?
And I will say that there are times when "fuck you, you're wrong" is acceptable. So there was a situation involving me. I'm horrifically divisive. That I spoke out and said I don't want anything to do with Nazis or people that platform Nazis. This was after months of talks behind the scenes. This was after a lot had gone on, and I just wanted to be completely separate from that. So I spoke out. Now, in my post, I didn't mention anyone, but it was still seen as horrifically divisive. So, yeah, I don't shirk from the divisive term, because everyone is divisive if you're a human being.
Well, you're divisive in your own head. You're constantly, I hope, challenging yourself and challenging your beliefs.
Yes.
Continuously throughout your life. So what would make the group any different?
Exactly.
I mean,
it wouldn't make the group any different.
Why are we so afraid to be challenged? Why do we get defensive whenever we get challenged on these trivial things? That's
and the challenge, I guess, for the people, and this is something that I've especially been trying to do here recently, is to examine your own moral framework, the foundation that you hold, and figure out exactly what is a permissible deviation from your belief system and what's not, right? And I think that will help in determining when and how people need to be removed from groups, and when people need to be lumped into groups, and because you're constantly doing it. That's the way that the brain operates. It just is. It's a fact of nature. You're trimming stuff down. You're attaching labels. You're trying to minimize your load as much as possible that's going on in your thinky parts. So, but one thing that we can all do, right, is think about why we would exclude Nazis. Do we have good reasons to say this is something that I just refuse to engage with? Do you have good reasons to think that trans people shouldn't have rights? Do you have good reasons? And whenever you start reviewing this, you'll notice that a lot of these run back to the values that we hold. A lot of these we don't hold for good reasons. They're things that were instilled in us. They're unconscious biases that we hold. And as soon as you start cracking those things open and looking at why you believe what you believe, some of that crap will fall away. It just, that's something that everybody should be doing if you care about believing things that are true.
Agreed.
Yeah, or if you want to grow as a human being.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just natural. We need to talk about Jordan. No, not Jordan from Spirit Science, but Jordan Burnt Peterson, a social commentator that's currently selling books that are popular among young and very angsty men. Don't fear the lobster daddy social hierarchy, because you see, Jordan is a psychologist, former professor, who is gender critical and holds certain feelings of angst himself when regarding modern philosophers like Karl Marx. And he's a Canadian anti-discrimination law reactionary, because it began to include trans people. I guess he's got some kind of transphobia issue there. Now, the hilarious thing is, Jordan expresses that postmodern philosophers such as Derrida and Foucault are fundamentally Marxist, therefore dangerous, therefore look at the lobster, sit up straight, clean your room, and never cast thy pearls before the swine. Okay, that wasn't Peterson on that last one, but I digress. Now, why is it funny that Jordan calls these guys postmodern? For one, postmodernism is generally quite critical of the modern philosophers like Karl Marx. And even though both of these gentlemen would probably reject the term postmodernist anyway, they were also critical of Karl Marx. Now, another pile of stupid shit that he's expressed: feminine is chaos. Masculine is a literal antidote to this chaos. Freud would have fun with that one. Speaking of Freud, that's perfect. Anyways, so another thing he said: socially forced monogamy should be considered, and that ancient art depicts DNA. Oh my. So with this lineup, I can imagine Peterson getting his own show on Gaia TV if he doesn't already have one. He's strong with the woo-woo doublespeak ambiguousness, rather like Deepak Chopra. But anyone who offers critique of Jordan is taking him out of context. And apparently the only folks smart enough to understand the deep cult speak of Dear Daddy Lobster are his fans. Imagine that. Now, it would be a shame if someone gave these fanboys a cutesy name like, I don't know, postmodern, which Burnt clearly is, neo-fascist, which daddy hierarchies tend to be. Of course, I would never soil my good name with such dirty tactics like Jordan Burnt Peterson has in an effort to appear strong with quick-witted snark. Of course, that would be a further shame if the hierarchy were given a bit of chaos. Two can play at that game. So if he's going to be a dirty daddy, I may end up just being a nasty woman, you postmodern neo-fascist. Now, Anyone who disagrees with and or is critical of this statement has taken me out of context and is too complex trademark. Further issues I have with Peterson, he's like those morons in the comments that didn't watch the video but have the answer to whatever they assumed you discussed. My opinion is that Jordan's socio-political arguments aren't researched enough to come to any sort of reasonable conclusion beyond the 6th grade level of effort. My pearl of wisdom for Jordan: do your homework, bucko.
But he saved us all from the scary pronouns. They were going to put people in prison if they accidentally misgender someone in Canada, and Jordan Peterson came out and saved the world from that, and his postmodern neo-fascism has led this world into the brilliant bullshit brown light of greatness.
A lot of his supporters do wear MAGA hats.
It's all true.
They're just trying to make America great again, y'all.
I had a list of people that I was going to throw into jail for misgendering me until Jordan Peterson came onto the picture and was like, no.
Well, you know, they have arrested massive amounts of people in Canada ever since this law. Oh, wait, no.
Massive.
Nope.
No.
And even what's so funny is the people who will say, well, he wasn't wrong. There was somebody in the UK. That's not Canada.
It's not Canada.
And that was for harassment. That was not for misgendering. It was for overt harassment.
Pretty sure the UK is not subject to Canadian laws.
Wait, they're not the same thing?
No.
No, they're not. They've got the moat, remember?
Yeah, there's the big moat between Canada and England.
Yeah.
I wasn't very good at geology.
Yeah.
So geology rocks, in case you haven't heard.
So here's the greatest thing that Jordan Peterson has ever done, and that is ranting for years and years about postmodern neo-Marxism, and then getting on stage and admitting that he had never read the Communist Manifesto.
Yeah.
Until just like a week prior to the debate.
Yeah, and he's been talking about this shit for years.
Well, and he only had like a year to prep for this debate, too.
Yeah.
That's the other thing that's really confusing. Because you're like, hey, I'm going to go debate this guy. And the topic is going to be communism, capitalism. And I'm not going to read the source material until 3 days before, even though I had a year to do it. That just blew my mind.
Do your homework, bucko.
Clean your room, bucko.
Galvis Cranium in the chat says, I'm writing this from Canadian jail for misgendering.
No.
Well, he also said a box of Timbits will get me out, which I'm assuming that's something Canadian, but since we have no idea.
Yeah, they're Tim Horton bits. They're little donut holes from Tim Hortons.
You live close enough to Canada
I don't
that
eat
you
bits
know
of
this.
I can spell them from over
Not
the
a cannibal.
picture.
Yes. All I know is people throw shit at people in Tim Hortons, and I'm not going anywhere near one.
I don't blame you for that. I really don't.
Like I tend to steer clear of places where there's a chance of shit throwing.
That's probably a good rule.
So,
Yeah,
like,
it's a pretty good rule.
It's a good rule.
That's not a bad rule.
My joke got missed.
What did you
I'm
say?
sad now. I said it's a good rule for life.
Yes.
Yeah. It could be the 13th rule.
Yep.
Roll
Yes.
Tide.
Yes.
I'm a little slow.
Mini donuts, you fucking heathen, is what he said.
I am a heathen, so
So we can't use that for our donut play then.
Do you know what? We have mini donuts that we call mini donuts.
Yeah, they're not bits of Tim.
Yeah, I don't want to eat bits of Tim.
Oh, poor
That
Tim.
sounds poor Tim.
Look,
Since-
How many
Tim
Tim
must be-
Hortons do y'all have up there, too?
Hey.
That must be an extremely common name.
You must
hold
be
on,
a
hold on.
doughboy.
You guys aren't understanding this. We're talking about Jordan Peterson. It has gotten so bad in Canada, they are eating people now.
Eating people named Tim. Poor
Tim,
Tim.
No,
mis-
because
Tim,
Tim misgendered somebody.
misgendered someone. And
Hey, poor
they're
Tim.
eating him. They're
God
eating
damn.
him.
was so
No, Tim.
All right, everybody. F to pay respects in the chat.
Pay respects for Tim.
Poor
his
Tim.
name was Robert Paulson.
Roll Tide.
I had to put Roll Tide in the chat.
I know somebody said the Alabama Educational System.
You know what's great is you guys both put F in the chat and no one knows what that is for like 40 seconds.
Oh,
yeah, that's true.
God jumping the gun.
I forgot.
What is going on?
A special thank you to all my wonderful patrons. I really appreciate your support. Also, like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss another snarky video. Don't forget to know yourself and stay snarky.